Greetings. My name is Karl. In the year 2005, my family and I moved into an old house, eager for a fresh start. This was the year when the winds of change blew us into the arms of a new home, an old house filled with whispers of the past. The initial thrill was palpable. The excitement of exploration, of setting up our lives in this new abode, was a sweet intoxication that washed over us. My wife, Laurie, and our two children, Mark and Jessica, were as eager as I was for this new beginning. Our old house was no match for this new one in terms of character. With every creaking floorboard, every whispering wind that rustled through the ancient trees outside, the house seemed to be telling us its stories. It was an old soul, and we were its new companions. To say that this house had a sense of mystery would be an understatement. It was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a living, breathing entity with secrets tucked away in its dusty corners. The days rolled into weeks. We unpacked, settled in, and began to make this house our home. Laurie, with her knack for creating warmth and comfort, turned each room into a cozy haven. Mark and Jessica, brimming with youthful enthusiasm, turned every nook and cranny into a playground. The house seemed to welcome us with open arms, and we revelled in its embrace. Yet, beneath the surface of our excitement, there was a sense of unease. The house's ancient walls held a strange energy that was impossible to ignore. Unsettling noises in the dead of night, cold drafts in closed rooms, unexplained shadows that danced in the corners of our eyes. We chalked it up to the house's old age, its quirks and idiosyncrasies. But deep down, we couldn't shake off a nagging feeling that there was more to this house than met the eye. Oh, how little we knew what we were stepping into. The excitement of the new beginning was about to take a chilling turn into an unforeseen realm of darkness. Little did we know, we were on the brink of an experience that would shake us to our core, forever changing the way we perceived the world around us. It didn't take long for the strange occurrences to begin. In the hushed whispers of the night, the house seemed to awaken. Objects would shift mysteriously from their places, their movements unseen but their presence undeniably altered. Our family's attempts to dismiss these occurrences as mere figments of our imagination or the product of a drafty old house were feeble at best. My children, Mark and Jessica, would often speak of disembodied voices, whispers that danced on the edge of their hearing. Their laughter turned to unease as their toys would inexplicably move on their own, their once comforting room becoming a stage for these inexplicable happenings. Laurie, ever the rational mind, tried to maintain a semblance of normality. She would often attribute the strange noises to the house settling into its foundations or the wind whistling through the old wooden frames. But even her scientific reasoning couldn't explain away the chilling drafts that would sweep through the house, seemingly originating from nowhere. I, being the head of the household, found myself wrestling with the unexplainable. Our once peaceful home now seemed to harbour an unseen resident. My nights filled with the dread of unexplained footsteps echoing in the hallway, the distant sound of a lullaby humming from the empty rooms, and the cold touch of an unseen hand. As the days turned into weeks, our family's initial dismissal of these events started to waver. The strange occurrences escalated, the air in the house growing heavy with an unsettling energy. The once warm and welcoming atmosphere of our home was replaced by a palpable sense of dread. Neighbours would often speak in hushed tones about our family, their sympathetic smiles replaced with worried glances. The local rumour mill spun tales of our family's descent into madness, their once jovial conversations now filled with whispers of the supernatural. But soon it became clear that something was very wrong. Our family, once dismissive of the strange occurrences, were now forced to confront the reality of the situation. The once comforting walls of our home now held a sinister secret, a presence that threatened to tear our family apart. And then it happened. I, Karl, was taken over by something dark. It began subtly, a shift in demeanour, a flicker in the eyes. It was as if I was watching my life from behind a smoky glass. I would sit for hours, staring at nothing, my mind filled with a fog of incoherent thoughts. My wife, Laurie, was the first to notice. Her loving gaze turned into a worried frown as I would lose myself in the middle of conversations, my words trailing off into silence. My children, little Mark and Jessica, found their father turning into a stranger. Laughter and bedtime stories were replaced with an eerie silence that hung heavily in our home. As days turned into weeks, I could feel the darkness within me growing stronger, my own personality receding into the shadows. I could hear whispers in my head, voices that weren't my own. My actions began to feel disconnected from my thoughts, as if I was a puppet on strings. Laurie and the kids tried their best to understand, to cope with the changes. But how do you explain to a child that their father is not himself? How do you comfort your spouse when you yourself are lost? Our once happy home was now steeped in an unshakable dread. Friends began to avoid us, whispers of our madness echoing through the small town. I could see the fear in people's eyes, the sideways glances as we walked down the street. I lost my job, unable to focus or function. Our children missed school, their young minds unable to comprehend the horror that had taken over their home. Some nights, when the fear became too much, we would find refuge in our neighbor Chris's house. But we knew we couldn't run from it. We couldn't leave our home, our town. We were trapped, not just by our financial constraints, but by the entity that had made a home within me. It was a nightmare we couldn't wake up from. Desperate, we sought help from a local priest. As the veil of darkness descended, we found ourselves knocking on the door of faith, hoping for a miracle. The priest, an elderly man of stark resilience, agreed to perform the exorcism. His name was Father O'Malley, a man who had weathered many storms, yet this was unlike any he had faced before. With the first light of dawn, Father O'Malley stepped into our home. Fear was palpable in the air, yet his presence seemed to provide a momentary respite. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now echoed with an eerie silence. A silence that was about to be broken by the sacred verses of the Holy Scripture. Father O'Malley began the exorcism, his voice resonating with the power of faith. The air grew heavy, the tension tangible. I was writhed in agony as the priest chanted, the demon inside him fighting for control. The room filled with an unearthly chill, and the priest, though strong in his faith, appeared to grow weak, beads of sweat forming on his furrowed brow. Suddenly a force, invisible yet overwhelmingly powerful, swept through the room. Father O'Malley was thrown back, his frail body unable to withstand the dark energy that had been unleashed. The first attempt of exorcism had failed, leaving the priest drained and sick. In the aftermath, we watched as Father O'Malley, pale and trembling, struggled to his feet. The demon inside me had not only resisted the exorcism, but had retaliated with a force that had left the priest incapacitated. We were confronted with a harsh reality. The entity that had possessed me was more powerful than we had ever imagined. The failure of the first exorcism was a crushing blow to our spirits. It felt as if the darkness had won, as if we were doomed to live under its oppressive shadow forever. But in the face of despair, we found strength in each other. We were a family, and we refused to let this malevolent force tear us apart. We were losing hope, but we knew we had to keep fighting. For me, for my wife Laurie, and for our children, Mark and Jessica, for our lives that once were, we had to rise and face the darkness once again. Then a glimmer of hope arrived in the form of a senior priest. He was an elder, hailing from a lineage of faith and knowledge. His aura was calm, yet there was an undeniable strength in his eyes. This was a man who had faced the darkness countless times before, a man who had seen the unimaginable and yet held his faith unshaken. His name was Father Andrew, a man of few words, but his presence was enough to instill a renewed sense of hope in our hearts. He listened to our story, nodding solemnly as we recounted the horrors of our recent past. There was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding and a resolve that mirrored our own. Father Andrew was different from the first priest. He did not tremble at the mention of the dark energy that had taken hold of me. Instead, he stood tall, a beacon of hope in our dim world. He assured us that he had faced stronger demons, that he had banished them back to the depths from which they had come. His confidence resonated with us, washing over our fears like a soothing balm. His words were like a lighthouse guiding a lost ship, pulling us back from the abyss of despair that we were on the brink of falling into. He promised to help us, to stand by us against the battle we were facing. And in his promise, we found our courage. The children, Mark and Jessica, who had been living in a constant state of fear, finally managed to crack a small smile. Laurie, my rock, my constant, held my hand a little tighter, her eyes gleaming with a newfound determination. We were ready to fight, to reclaim our lives from the shadow that had been looming over us. Father Andrew's arrival wasn't just a ray of hope, it was a beacon of light in our darkest hour. We knew the journey ahead was going to be difficult, but with Father Andrew by our side, we were ready to face whatever came our way. This was our last chance, and we were holding on to it with everything we had. And so, the final exorcism began. The air was thick with the tension of unspoken fears. As we gathered in the heart of our home, the senior priest, a man of formidable faith and courage, stood at the helm, guiding us through the stormy seas of the unknown. I was at the center, my body racked with the torment of possession. My eyes, once full of warmth and love, were now empty vessels, echoing with the chilling laughter of the demon within. Our children, Mark and Jessica, huddled close to Laurie, their mother, their young faces etched with confusion and terror. The priest began the ritual, his voice steady and strong against the tumultuous energy that filled the room. Latin phrases, heavy with power and purpose, echoed off the walls, piercing the veil between our world and the one that had claimed Karl. The demon fought back, twisting my body in grotesque contortions, filling the air with guttural roars of defiance. Yet the priest remained unswayed. His faith was his shield, his prayers his weapon. With each word, each gesture, he pushed back against the darkness, determined to bring me back. His strength, his resolve, was a beacon of hope in our darkest hour. The struggle was long. It was as if time stood still, each second stretching into eternity. But finally, with a shattering cry that echoed through the house, the demon released its hold. I collapsed. My body was finally free from the torment that had consumed me. The relief that washed over us was palpier than the cold winter air outside. Finally, I was free, but the ordeal was far from over. The exorcism had taken its toll on us all. The air was still heavy with the remnants of the battle we'd fought. We were victorious, but the victory came at a cost. The house, once a symbol of our fresh start, now echoed with whispers of the past. The possession, the exorcism, the aftermath, it was a burden I carried with me. My eyes, once full of life, now reflected a weariness that went beyond physical fatigue. My job, a casualty of the ordeal, was lost. My office had grown weary of my erratic behavior and constant absences. The loss hit us hard, but I bore it with a stoic resignation. Our children, Mark and Jessica, had their innocence tarnished by the experience. They missed school, their education disrupted by the chaos. Childhood games were replaced by hushed whispers and fearful glances. Their laughter, once a constant in our home, became a rare and precious sound. Our reputation in the town had taken a hit. Once we were the new family, the object of friendly curiosity. Now we were the subject of hushed whispers and sideways glances. People crossed the street to avoid us, their judgmental eyes filled with a mix of fear and pity. Yet, in the face of all this, we found strength in each other. We became our own sanctuary, our own support system. We spent nights huddled together at our neighbour Chris's house, seeking solace in the warmth of companionship. The children found comfort in the routine of school and friends, slowly regaining their lost innocence. Me, despite losing my job, found a new purpose in protecting and supporting us through the ordeal. Recovery was a slow process. It was a journey of healing, of regaining our lost life bit by bit. It was about finding the strength to face the day, to smile, to hope. It was about standing tall even when the world seemed to be against us. We were bruised, but not broken. And in the face of adversity, we found our true strength. Life eventually moved on, but we could never forget. The echoes of the past, the chilling whispers and the haunting memories of our old home still lingered, a constant reminder of our once possessed existence. The ordeal had changed us, shaped us into survivors, into a family who had faced the darkest corners of the unknown and emerged stronger. The senior priest, our savior, remained in our hearts. His wisdom and courage had been our beacon in the storm, guiding us through the terrifying darkness of possession and into the light of deliverance. We were forever indebted to him, gratitude etched deep within our souls. This experience, as harrowing as it was, taught us the true meaning of family. We found strength in each other, love in the face of fear, and unity in the midst of chaos. Our tale is one of survival, of love, and of the strength that lies within a family. And it is a tale we will carry with us, always.